Did you know that 75% of women in their 40s experience perimenopausal symptoms? Well, the last episode, we talked about a lot of things, just the basics about perimenopause. And today we get to do something very special. We've got a wonderful friend here, my
Yes.
girlfriend from college, Keisha. Say hi.
Hi.
Well, she is a mother of two. She has been married for 22 years, and she is a business executive. So she has a busy, full life, and she has been dealing with some things that we need to talk about. So we're going to get to it now.
I've been dealing with some things.
She's wondering if it's gonna feel like she's forever. Wondering if it's gonna feel like she's whenever she leaves her safe space. She leaves her safe.
Okay, so one of the things that Tanya was saying, or Dr. Franklin, I'm going by Tanya because that's your best friend.
Yes.
But one of the things Dr. Franklin was saying is how you had gone through some changes. So my first question for you, Keisha, is when and how did you know that the physical changes that you were going through were due to hormonal changes?
It really was my friends, my girlfriends. They were the ones that made me even aware that perimenopause was a real situation that I was experiencing. So I was so surprised that my doctors weren't asking me or inquiring. I was having a lot of just hormonal outbursts, whether it was crying or, my husband definitely noticed that my libido wasn't as, what's the word?
High or like robust.
Robust.
Yeah.
Robust. I'm so excited to be here with both of you, by the way, Dr. Coates and Dr. Franklin.
Thank you.
Yes.
It's just such an honor. I love what you're doing for women because we need it. We need to know. And without this type of, education, so many of us are just wondering if there's something wrong with us.
Yeah.
Yes.
I really felt like something was wrong with me and like I was doing a disservice to my family. I wanted to be myself.
Yes.
And I just couldn't figure that out. I just was irritable, angry. Of course, having two girls in the house, I was
And they're
calling-
hormonal.
Yes.
Yeah. And they're hormonal. And so when did you think that it wasn't just like you were feeling depressed or anxious and that it wasn't just all in your mind, that it was actually something physical? How did that spark that thought?
It was one of my girlfriends. She told me she was going through hormone replacement therapy. She is older than me, and she was telling me that sex with her husband wasn't great. And I think she needed somebody to talk to. And as she was telling me these things, I started to think about my own experiences. And while sex with my husband is great, so I wasn't having that problem yet.
Yeah.
I was having, a lot of other symptoms. And one of the biggest ones was just crying. I couldn't control, like a few days before my periods were heavier than normal. And I just couldn't control the tears.
So, Keisha, you bring up a lot of good points. Not all women are going to experience the same symptoms at the same time, or they may not go on to experience all of the symptoms. Everyone is going to look different, but obviously you were able to connect with your girlfriend and have these conversations. You mentioned some really big symptoms that you were having. One of the first ones I heard was abnormal or more heavier bleeding, some changes in your mood, and also changes in your desire for sexual intercourse. Is there any other symptoms that you were noticing around that time, or was those some of the main ones you were experiencing?
Those were the main symptoms that I was experiencing, and it was very confusing because I didn't know, and there weren't any tests to say that it was perimenopause, or I was thinking I'm way too young to even be thinking about menopause. I mean, the M word.
Yeah.
But I don't, I'm trying to think if there were any other symptoms. I think just the irritability. I was very irritable right away on things that wouldn't upset me as much.
How about your sleeping habits? How did those get impacted?
I'm glad you brought that up because I, as a busy businesswoman, sometimes I won't sleep at night. And so I didn't really think that it was part of that. I thought that the insomnia was just something that I was doing to myself, trying to get more done with less. And I really realized that actually it was part of those perimenopause symptoms.
Yeah. I think one of the most important things too is you mentioned how your husband recognized that some things had changed. How did the family, how were they experiencing these changes? Because you're experiencing them from inside and you really can't put a finger on it, you can't explain it. How did they respond to these changes? Because it's going to impact maybe how you engage and interact with them.
It was so tumultuous in our house. You know, I called you.
I know.
It was tough. And thinking back now that I'm reflecting on different situations, I feel so bad for my husband because he probably thought my wife doesn't desire me, or, she doesn't want to have sex with me. And that's not the case at all. Like, it was just, I was tired. The other thing, because my periods were so heavy, my iron was low.
Yes.
I was losing a lot of iron over the 5 years my doctors had been tracking, and still they weren't saying anything about perimenopause. They weren't connecting the dots for me or helping me to understand that. So I was really doing a disservice to my family, because here I am, we named me Cruella de Vil.
Oh.
Here I am. Just, not myself. Really not myself.
And this is so important because if you're having heavier periods and you are losing iron, your hemoglobin is probably low, you're anemic.
Yes.
You're going to be fatigued. So when you get up and go to work and then you're like, well, I didn't sleep because I've been working so hard. And then I'm not sleeping because I'm tossing and turning at night, maybe from menopausal flushes. And then you're anemic on top of it. It's almost like there's so many things hitting you and you just don't feel yourself. And there are so many different things you can do to treat these symptoms that, like you said, no one connected the dots for you.
I was angry. I was angry. My kids were angry with me. My husband, I was angry with him. It was, there was a lot of anger as a result of misunderstanding.
And not being able to put a name to it.
So you mentioned that it took a while for you to notice what these symptoms were and label it as perimenopause, just from your conversations with your friends and when your best friend's being a doctor and you'd be able to call her up. What about your providers? What happened when you finally took these symptoms, what you were experiencing, to your providers and said, hey, I think I am going through this?
So the first thing that I did was I researched hormone replacement therapy, because I thought, I'm not myself. I didn't know to what level of not myself I was, but I knew it was extreme. And so I thought, I just need to replace some hormones so I feel better. I had no idea. So I went to, what did you tell me?
You went to a bioidentical hormone clinic.
That.
Yes.
I went there. And it was very expensive, and they were going to inject me with pellets, or they were going to...
With estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone likely.
Yes. And I just felt like, okay, this is way too much too fast.
It was overwhelming.
I had to take a step back. I talked with my primary care physician, and at that time I told her, I've been married for 22 years, and maybe only 2 of those years had I really been on any type of birth control. Only one partner. So we always, we have 2 kids, and I just didn't think I needed it. And so now that I am on a low dose birth control, I actually feel more normal, feel more like myself, because I'm getting some of those hormones that I wasn't before.
Yes.
So that was one of the first things they helped me with. And other than that, I've just been listening to y'all's podcast.
Aw, thanks. But no, this is important because when you have, you are perimenopause, you are still fertile. So you still have risk of pregnancy. And then you have heavy bleeding, and then you have some mood changes. And birth control pill really is a really nice fix.
It is.
To address all of those issues. So are your periods better?
They're better. They're lighter. The doctors wanted to do some iron IV, because my iron had gone from like 19 down to 9, or 13 to 9, something dramatic. 13 to 9. I think 12 is a good level, right?
Yeah. So normally, like, it's anywhere from like that 12 to 13. So it probably went from 13 to 9, as you were describing.
Oh, we're talking about hemoglobin.
Yes, hemoglobin.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
You were very low.
Yes. And I didn't want to just jump into like putting all this stuff into my body. So, I decided just to give the birth control some time. And, now I'm starting to like have more energy and feel more normal. And so one thing at a time.
Yeah.
Okay, Keisha. So you have a lot of experience now in perimenopause. What kind of advice would you give other women that are starting to have some of these symptoms or may not be there yet, but to kind of give them a heads up on what to expect?
Talk to your friends, talk to your doctor. I would say watch this podcast.
Thank you.
Yes.
Because you're not alone. You're not the first one to go through it. I just think there's a lack of the conversation. So I'm really inspired and happy that you guys invited me here and that we're getting a chance to talk about this because we're so busy. Our culture is so busy and you're not crazy. One of the symptoms, Dr. Coates, was brain fog. And already having two girls, I'm saying the wrong thing. I might tell them to put the food in the oven or the dryer. I don't know. I'm just, there's so much going on. And it just makes you feel like you're not yourself. Something's wrong with you, and a lot of my friends that were in their early 40s, they were starting to get diagnosed with depression and anxiety. And, doctors were putting them on antidepressants. And I didn't want to be on an antidepressant because I was so grateful for my life, but I just couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. So my advice is really, talk to your friends, share your experiences with them, and really, have someone that can listen. Because I would love to prevent some of these changes from happening. I mean, is there a way to like slow them down or to prevent them from happening?
So I think we both took a big deep breath when you asked that question, like, how do we prevent, like, how do we slow it down? Because there is no way to prevent. Our hormonal changes is because our ovaries is a organ that just stops producing as much hormones over time. And there's nothing that we can do to prevent or slow that process down. It's just the natural makeup of our body and how it works because we don't have a long lifespan to ovulate and to create babies. And so once we reach the end of that ovulation period, in order to reproduce, our ovaries stop making that amount of hormone over time. So, because if we had a little special pill or, we wouldn't be here right now. We'd be out somewhere on somebody's yacht because we'd have figured it out for all the women, right?
Man. Yes, we would.
Right. So I think that that's what a lot of women are hoping to have. And they look for the best medication to kind of stop it or to prevent it. And I tell them, let's look at the medication or the lifestyle changes to help address the symptoms that are the most distressing for them. It may not be this one thing. It may be a multiple things at one time. So that was a great question. And we both had to take a little breath.
Yes, because we wish.
Yes.
So what other questions do you have?
Well, when you said that the ovulation slows as we age, is there some type of test or some way to know that this is coming? Because I would think that, my providers would have said, you're 37, you're 38, these are things that you might be experiencing and help me to identify them. Instead, I just went in and I was like, I think I'm in perimenopause. And they were like, yep. Like, where's the test?
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
how do I know?
Well, it's so confusing to patients because the ranges of estradiol, the ranges of FSH, which is the follicle stimulating hormone, it can be wide and it may not be well defined for every woman at every time. That's why there's so much variation in how you present, so much variation on what age you present with these symptoms. So there really isn't one easy test. The true definition of like perimenopause is 7 to 10 years before menopause. Menopause is when you stop having your menstruation for one whole year. So that is even a range that time before then. So when you're in that age range, if we checked your FSH today, it may be within the normal limits. On another day, it might be a little bit high. Your estradiol might be swinging really high. And then another time it may be really low, which may be causing those flushes you might get. So there's no easy way to define it until you actually have that 1 year without a period. And that's much more defined.
So I have women who come into my office all the time and ask for hormonal labs. And I'll get them, but I let them know that this is not going to be diagnostic. But I also get other labs too. So you mentioned your blood count and anemic. I will also do a complete blood count to check for things like that. I also do a thyroid laboratory assessment just to make sure it's not something going on with their thyroid gland, which also can regulate our mood and it can also affect our menstrual cycles. And so I do other assessments as well, laboratory assessments to monitor those things. You also mentioned things like your bleeding. And so even though there's no perfect test, your cycles are changing likely due to being in perimenopausal period. There is still assessments we can do, such as an ultrasound of your uterus or even sampling of your uterine cavity just to make sure we're not missing other causes of your abnormal bleeding. So, yeah.
And
How
then,
can I get on Dr. Coates' schedule?
right? Exactly. Drive all the way
Like,
down here.
Very thorough.
Yes. So there's some other things that we talked about, mood changes. And of course, you mentioned some of your friends had been on medications
Yes.
for depression, anxiety. And those are certainly options for people. And especially if they start having symptoms right before their menstruation, like PMS symptoms, but then the rest of the month they're okay. You can actually dose these medications every single day or just during the 2 weeks before your menstruation, if that's when it's really serious and really impacts your life. So not only do you have the option to do antidepressants and medication for anxiety, but you have the option to just do therapy
Yes.
and to give yourself love and do self-care. And maybe when you're on your menstruation, you take it back, you chill and you're at home and you're not socializing a whole lot because you just need time to rest and take care of yourself.
That's so important. And when you have a busy lifestyle like we do, it's hard to remember to take that time out for yourself already, let alone with these types of symptoms like perimenopause stacking on top of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You also mentioned the brain fog, which I think a lot of women take, and it can be very distressing. So I love how your doctor acknowledged it and starting the combined hormonal therapy. So you were started on a birth control pill that had estrogen and progesterone in it. By giving you some of those hormones back, it also can relieve some of the brain fog. But as Dr. Franklin was saying, other things such as meditation, taking time for yourself, even exercise and developing a new workout routine, those things can also influence our brain so that we are able to remember things a little bit more. I have a lot of women say, I have family history of dementia. Does this mean I'm like, this is temporary. We just got to do things to work through this time period.
And with the brain fog, people don't realize maintain reading, read at night, socialize. Human connection keeps us all young and healthy, and just getting good sleep. I know when we were residents, when I was a resident, when you were a resident,
Yes.
and you be pulling those all-nighters, man, you're just tired. You feel like, you're on your way home and you can't think straight sometimes.
Yes.
So that can impact how acute and sharp you are. So you got to get your sleep as well.
I know another one of the symptoms that popped out was chin hairs. That was, I blamed it on my girls. They say girls steal your beauty, but I blamed it on them because right after I had my second child, I was getting really thick chin hair. And so that was probably the very first, signal, but I ignored it. I just thought it was,
Yes, this is
aging.
not uncommon. So a lot of women in their 30s and 40s, they'll start producing a little bit more testosterone for a period there, which will increase their acne, increase their hair growth. So this is not uncommon.
Yeah. A common symptom also could be more hair thinning or more shedding. And so that's another way that people can present. So very common. And it's, again, that birth control pill that your provider started for you can also help block some of those testosterone levels, which could then treat any acne changes if that was the issue, or reducing some of that hair growth.
If my girls knew what I was going through at the same time I knew what I was going through, I think it would just be so much better for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this is a time where to have a conversation with your family so that they know, like, just like we had changes when you were going through your menstrual cycles and things like that, where I had to support you as you were learning your body.
Yes.
I'm also adjusting in this time period too, and mama gonna need a little support as well. So I think having that conversation probably a couple times and doing a lot of apologizing, saying like, I may have not reacted in a way that I I should have in that moment, but
Yes.
coming back and having a conversation and humanizing yourself because we're not perfect and we're just trying to get better each day. So
Yeah,
yes.
I may not have handled that one the best, but mama's in perimenopause, so
Right? Well, it's so
need to give me some grace.
Yes.
I am so glad you're able to talk about this
Yeah.
and, do your own research, talk to other women going through this because, it does help to put things in perspective for yourself. So now you know what is happening, that it's not all in your mind, that you don't just need an antidepressant because
Right.
it's all up here, that there are some real physical and hormonal changes happening. And it helps you feel like you can take some control back. There's so many things that you can do. Number one, we talked about non-hormonal treatments is exercise. So I know we talked the other day.
Yes.
And you were about to go on a bike ride.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, girl.
Got to get out there.
Yes.
Keep it moving.
So you're staying very active.
Have to.
Have you noticed that has helped, like either physically or mental health wise?
Both mentally and physically, it's helped. And it's also great for my husband because now we're out, we're doing things together, we're getting that exercise in. So then, later on, maybe we can do something else.
Yes. That's a good place for us to pick back up on that libido conversation.
Yes, this is true. Yeah.
So I like to talk about the uncomfortable, and I'm so happy you were very comfortable already bringing us up to us in this safe space. It's talking about sex, and I'm the provider to ask about it at any annual care visit because I want to make sure your sexual health and your sex life is not changing. So what I heard you say is you still desire to be intimate, but that desire just started to happen less and less. Do you mind just kind of share a little bit more about like that time period of your relationship?
Yes, it was not even anything that I noticed as much. I think my partner, my husband, noticed it more than I did because I loved our sex. It was always great. It was always, enough for me. It just wasn't frequent enough for him, but I didn't realize it. And I think just that busy lifestyle, always going and just, being too tired by the end of the day. I just thought it was that. I had no idea that, those urges to pounce on my husband, like they weren't as normal,
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is that when you guys were intimate, you were able to have like an orgasm still. That wasn't something that changed.
Correct.
And I think that is something that is important for women to address in this perimenopausal period where that desire may change. It may decrease a little bit, but that does not mean that like you are broken. That just means that we address it and we do things to move forward. So the first thing I always ask my patients is, are you able to have an orgasm, whether that is with your partner or by yourself? Because masturbation is still an important thing for us to talk about to our patients. And so I say, even if you feel like this is not something you want to address with your partner, do it alone by yourself. And then I also talk to them about like what has changed in their life. Is it their insomnia? Like, are they not sleeping as well as they used to? Is it something to do with pain with sex? Are they noticing more irritation or pain with intercourse to where they don't desire it? Because that is something that can occur. Is it the bleeding where they just have these painful bleeding episodes and cramping during sex that they don't have the desire because it's going to lead to more pain? So I try to like pinpoint to make sure it's no other causes that's leading to it. And then when we notice this, it's just the desire part. I always let them know that there is no pill that I can give you. Just there's no happy pill that I can give you to make you happy every day. There is no pill that I can give you that makes you want to have sex every day. But there is things that we could do. So the first one is having the conversation with our partner just to see, is there a way that we can date each other every day to make it to where you want to be sexually active with your partner? And also I talk to them about like trying new things with your partner, whether that is going to try a new toy or going to try a new position, whatever that may be, trying a new lubricant out, trying a new massage oil, something to make it more intimate and bring an intimacy in the bedroom so that it doesn't always have to be about just the intercourse part, because sometimes that intimacy may look different for us as we are changing, as we're going through our perimenopausal period. And then I talk about talking to someone else and bringing that other person into the bedroom. So not into the bedroom like that, but like I said that, I forget about our generation these days. Nothing wrong with it, y'all, but that's not what I meant, like a sexual health therapist. So like sometimes having a sexual health therapist talk to us with our partner or us by ourselves.
This is so normal. Like,
I know.
it's so good to just feel like, all these options, these things I can try, just to get back to some normalcy.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So now I want to know, you said that hot flushes were not really primary for you. Have you experienced hot flushes?
I have.
Okay.
Yes, I have. And they have come, as I've been on the journey. But initially, I wasn't really experiencing them. And usually, I've noticed them in the middle of the night. I'll be asleep and, have to take off
Absolutely.
clothes and covers and, all of that, and then put them back on.
Hot flushes can happen any time of the day. And many times when they happen at night, they cause sleep disturbances.
Yes,
And
wakes
that's
me up.
where sometimes the insomnia comes in, and then it impacts your next day. Then you have the brain fog because you're just not at your best. You haven't recovered through the night like you normally would at sleep. So when hot flushes do occur during the day, they can be associated with other things too. So if you're like in a rush or you're feeling stressed because you were supposed to turn in something at noon and you're trying to get it rushed together, and then you just all of a sudden feel that flush, some kind of event that makes you anxious can spark a hot flush. So you've got to try to, like, if you feel like you're getting anxious or that you're getting nervous about something, take a deep breath. I mean, I had to do that today. I had to just like take a deep breath and like try to calm myself down so I didn't have a hot flush. And it did help. There are other things like meditation to just help you center yourself. There are medications that you can take for hot flushes, and that can be something like beta blockers to dampen any kind of response you have. A lot of the times when you have a hot flush, it feels like you're having anxiety. So your palms may sweat, your heart may race, and then you'll start sweating externally. So beta blockers can dampen those symptoms. Other things that you can use are antidepressants, actually are like first line therapy for these symptoms. Effexor is another anti-anxiety medication for generalized anxiety that's used. And then there's clonidine, which is used really for hypertension.
It is.
And then gabapentin, which is like a pain medicine, which can dampen a lot of those symptoms. So you've got a whole range of things.
Now, with my iron levels being low, does that affect the hot flushes that I get or that I wasn't getting? Or do you think that that has any correlation?
I don't think that they will cause hot flushes, but they will make you feel fatigued. They might even make your heart race. If you're really anemic, your heart
They will.
actually does a physiologic response to speed up oxygen delivery. And so it may make your heart race, and then it may make you feel
Feel warm.
anxious and then have a hot flush. So it's all connected.
It's all connected.
It's all connected.
I just am nervous about actually getting into menopause. Like, this perimenopause has been enough. There's another stage.
Look, you are doing a beautiful job,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Dr. Coates?
Yes, I know. It's this like, this is before menopause. What am I going to be looking forward to when I'm actually in that period? And I think that you've already set yourself up for success, because we have given you some baseline things that you can take with you into that menopausal period. And right now, as you already described, you're on a low dose combined hormonal, contraception medication. And so there is so many other options of medical therapies or hormonal replacement therapies that we haven't even gotten to if we need to. Because most of your symptoms will only start to like level out in that menopausal period. It doesn't mean that because you hit this 1 year mark of not having periods that things are going to get worse. It doesn't mean that. It just kind of is your body is already showing those early signs, and this may be your steady level state. Don't you agree, Dr. Franklin?
Absolutely. They think that menopause, once you get that period of like the 1 year without, that it can last about 5 years
Wow.
through there. But you're already dealing with a lot of the symptoms that you will be faced with. You're hitting them head on. You're already starting to feel better. You're getting more education about how to take better care of yourself. I think you're winning right now.
I agree. And I think that just the education piece, even for my family, as we get closer to this next step in the journey, they'll be more prepared, you know,
Yes.
which will be more harmonious for everyone.
You know, we need menopause coaches.
Yes.
You should be a coach. I love that.
I know.
would be a coach.
You know how we have like our doulas for our life? We need like our menopause coach.
doula.
Yes.
I love that.
Well, look, we are going to be ending and wrapping things up. We have enjoyed this so
Yes.
much.
Oh, it's been my pleasure.
I
Thank you
cannot
so
even
much.
like express how grateful we are
Yes.
to have you come down and spend this time with us and talk with us and laugh with us.
Yes.
This is the best.
This is the best. I never thought when we were 18, having those overnighters in college, that we'd be sitting here talking about perimenopause.
I know. We have known each other for almost 30 years. And I just feel like we're not old enough to know each other for 30
No,
years.
we're not.
Right?
We're not old enough.
Not at
for
all.
that.
I don't look it.
But to wrap things up, I want you all to take a look. So at our last podcast, we talked about this special test I saw on a commercial that talked about how do you test yourself for menopause. So I picked some up. Okay. This is called the Clear Blue Menopause Journey Test. And we do not endorse this or not endorse it at this point, but this is the only product that was available on the market. And so we picked some up. And for our next episodes coming up, we're actually going to test these and then report our results. And I would love to gift this to you, my friends,
Yes.
because we want to hear your results.
Yes.
You and me should have very similar results.
Okay.
She's a youngin'.
Oh, stop
so
it.
her results will be different.
You see us mid-30s. See, they not listening to us.
Yeah, because you chilling while we over here
Right.
like,
Like,
woo, woo.
where's the perimenopausal light
Fans.
Thank you
We need
all
all of
so
it.
much. Thank you again, Keisha. I'm
Thank
just
you.
going to, I really appreciate you and like to see you all have this beautiful relationship and it to play out on screen today. It was an easy conversation. Thanks for being vulnerable with us and with all of our individuals that are watching us. Thank you so much for coming to see us. Our next episode will be on menopause, so y'all tune in because we're going to get a little bit more into those menopausal symptoms and other treatment options that we did not talk about today.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So like, subscribe, follow our channel, and share it. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Peace. Bye.